Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Quarantine. I'm David Castillo from Saint Vitus. Happy Friday. We're going to be going live with King Dude, aka TJ Cowgill. I want to just thank everybody who's been, out there on the streets working for social justice, doing anything that you can to kind of contribute to that movement. And I think TJ has joined us now.
Oh my God.
TJ.
Oh my God, it worked.
You see? Look at that. We're back, baby. Or maybe we're not back. Maybe we're just here.
Technology.
How are you, TJ?
This is wonderful.
This is wonderful. It's good to fucking see you, man.
It's great to see you, man. Thank you for having me.
We've been friends for I was thinking about it. We've been friends for a long time, man. Over a decade.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about because when I first met you, you were doing sort of a culture website.
Yeah,
like it was like a youth culture website, and I was pretty much we met because I was doing actual paint.
Yeah, definitely. And I was into Book of Black Earth as well.
Yeah. And then we were both in metal bands. And then we both quit metal bands, and then you started something that isn't metal, and I started something that isn't metal.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And then I started something that's metal again, in a way. But here we are.
We have a very similar arc on two different, sides of the fucking country. Like you're over there, and I'm over here. But here we are, doing kind of. This is great, by the way. The Age of Quarantine thing. Fuck. How did you? You thought this up? Was this your idea? I assume it's your idea.
It was actually the idea for Age of Quarantine came from Chris Enriquez, who is one of my best friends. And then I was on the first episode, and I was like, man, this is fucking cool. Why don't we?
So then you just fucking came in like a cockroach and took it over. You were like,
I was like,
where's all the rat? You're like, hey, this is a good idea. Yeah. I like what you've done with the place. Let me take it over. Let me do. I want to talk.
And then I was like, Chris, let's do more. Let's do bigger.
No, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I'm just kidding, everybody.
Really excited about it.
Yeah.
And,
just kidding, Chris. I know Chris is a big part of this. That's great.
Yeah, and then Artie came in too, and then now we have like a whole squad. It's a whole production.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, so I want to address something before we kind of start. Obviously, we talk a lot about music on the program. Primarily, this is created to connect with our favorite artists while they can't play, and obviously like that. But today was a bit of a milestone for Saint Vitus. There was a big article that came out, and we raised $125,000 because of the power of our community for St. Vitus in the pandemic.
That's amazing.
It's a really amazing thing. And so, we've been doing this since the beginning and getting the word out and stuff. So I just want to thank everybody who's, taking a moment to contribute to us and just fucks with what we do. It's a really amazing thing in a really crazy world right now. And I would want to just do that. And then the second thing, of course, is as we're moving away from that, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff in the coming weeks around, obviously, the movement that has sprung up against, police brutality and towards social justice stuff. And so, obviously, me and you, TJ, we had to talk about, should we do this? How should we do
I kind of approached you and I said, is this the right time for just us to be talking about dumb shit, Because there's so many other things to talk about, I feel like, and other things that people feel like they should be doing, than maybe sitting around and watching a live stream between, me and you. But I don't know. I just didn't know. So that's why I wrote you, and I wanted to see what you thought. And you said, hey, are you cool about talking about this stuff? I said, yeah, I'm cool about talking about it. So we did it. But I mean, I also don't know what's going on. I've been in Sweden for 2 months. And Sweden is a completely different thing,
Yeah, totally.
Although I did see recently they had their own Black Lives Matters protest, and it kind of went south. It kind of went bad. Like they actually got kind of fucked up by the cops. Did you see that?
And I thought of you as
well.
I
wasn't there then. I mean, I've sort of missed everything. because I left Stockholm on Monday, traveled to London, and then, you know, I've been coming back here though was really strange. I mean, coming back to Seattle was, it was definitely like, when I landed in LA, there was like a curfew warning, you know, like my phone was like, you must, you know, be at home by 6 p.m. Well, that wasn't possible. I was flying home at like 9, and they closed the freeway down there. They closed down I-5. So my mom picked me up at the airport, which is, God bless her, you know, but we had to take back roads to get me home. And I live downtown. I live like right at the heart where people are, you know, they're protesting more on the hill, on Capitol Hill, I think right now, but they protested down here, and there's been looting and other things down here, which is like, it's a different thing to come home to, you know, like,
sure. Can we talk
yeah.
about this? So, let's direct, usually I start these things with the one fundamental question, which is, you know, do you know where you'd be if you weren't at home? But you just got home, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about that more. So what were that you were in Sweden?
Yeah. I was in Sweden, and Stockholm never locked down. And the reason I was there too, I was on tour. So I was, the intention was to do like 20, you know, 22 more concerts. I managed to do about 7 concerts before COVID. You know, everybody locked everything down. And it just so happened that we were in Sweden when the lockdown happened. And because I kind of know a little bit about Sweden, and I've lived there before in the past, and I know, I had a feeling that they wouldn't take the lockdown as serious, because Denmark took it very serious, Norway took it very serious, and Sweden usually goes the other, whatever they're doing, Sweden does something else, you know. They do their own thing. And so I go, you know, I was like, we should just stay here. So me and my girlfriend just stayed there for, you know, 2 months. We just rented a flat. And I mean, it sucked. I lost a lot of shows, you know, I lost a lot of income. And I was there to tour. I wanted to tour. But, you know, of all places to be in the world, it was open. There was no lockdown. There was no, man, I didn't see anybody wearing masks, you know. Like, it's a completely different experience for me. And meanwhile, I'm seeing my friends back here, you know, being completely locked down. My friends and family, they couldn't leave. They're having to wear masks. It's like almost like a police state, you know. And Sweden just didn't have that. They still don't have it. It was surreal to come back. So it's like I got dropped in the middle of 1984, really, with the riots too and everything and the protests. It's like a completely different world.
Yeah, than what you had. You left, and then you came back, and you're like, pandemic, social unrest.
But I kind of love it, to be honest. I'm not against that. I feel like a Martian walking around, like, or like it feels like a Twilight Zone episode. But honestly, I mean, I follow the news. It's just it's one thing to see it through like your phone or your laptop, and then it's another thing to see it, you know, in person. When you coming home makes it, you know, the dysphoria of everything a lot more real. And as an American being over there, I still feel it. You know, I feel like shit. What's happening back home? You know, I feel, you know, heartbroken over the shit that's happening. You know, but
of course, so
yeah.
So basically, just for everybody following along, it's like, so TJ was on tour.
Yeah.
The pandemic hit week 1 of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
He's stuck in Sweden for 2 months. Pandemic closures continue to roll out, and the arc. And then as he's finally able to get back into the country after a couple of months, losing a bunch of income, everything else like that, in that time as well, a couple of different murders happened, and boom, we also had mass protests on the street around all that. So,
yeah, and that's crazy too to me, because as you could tell, like, the epicenter of the protests was in Minneapolis, and it kind of spread out from there, and now it's spreading to the rest of the world. So, like, you know, when did they start protesting in Minneapolis? Was that a week and a half ago?
Yes, I mean, it started around that. I mean, that's when the news really started coming out, and
when they started to really cover it, and it kind of blew up and spread to other cities. But then, if you look at it, like, Sweden just started to protest Wednesday, like 2 days ago, And so it's like, you can almost see it's like dropping a pebble in a pond and you see the riptides like kind of move out. I was like moving around the riptide, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got here after, you know, the initial shock of it. I mean, I saw it all too, like, I saw it on, I check the news every day.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I check out everything I can, you know, everything I could take in. It's pretty bad news these days. I mean, whatever, but I still read it because I want to be informed. I want to know what I'm coming back to. And I knew about the riots and you know, the protests and everything else as they were happening, but it's a different thing to see it. It's a different thing to land in LA and to get the notification and to really be, another thing too, to have been in Sweden for 2 months where everything is just basically business as usual. Like, it's like nothing changed.
Which is such a rare thing on the planet, because this,
Yeah.
you know, the pandemic was
Yeah.
a truly global event.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
Sweden,
also in itself so rare.
Sweden took the weirdest turn to like not do anything like every other country on the on Earth was doing. But it,
Yeah.
you know, I knew that would kind of I knew I would come back, and you know, I'd have a different story than everyone else. I don't know. Maybe there was another American there. I mean,
yeah,
maybe
there
know?
definitely are.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of an interesting thing when you're out and now you're back in. So do you feel like you're a bit of a time traveler coming back?
It feels weird. Like I said, it does feel like a bit of a Twilight Zone episode. And when I walk around, I feel like a bit of a Martian. But I am an American, so you know, I'm learning the rules really quick. You know, you know, I went to whatever. I went to the bank today because I had to deposit some foreign currency from the tour, and that was like, it's surreal. It's a little bit different, and I'm not saying like Europe does things better categorically, but Americans tend to have this level of anxiety and this level of fear and anxiousness that isn't exactly shared by most Europeans. So it's and in specific, Swedish people, they're not afraid of their government as much. They're not afraid of they're not afraid. I mean, it's just different. Everything is much more home. I don't know how to describe
Sure.
it other than that.
So that's been your life for the past couple of months. Let's talk about your life way before that. Let's talk a little bit more about just what led you up to this point. Because to me, that's a big part of the story. So when you first started playing music, right? Yeah. What was like kind of your earliest kind of like experiences with music as a kid and stuff like that? What first drew you to the power of music?
That's a good question. When I was a really little kid, I got an NWA tape. I think we stole it. I think we actually shoplifted it, and that was pretty cool. But I didn't think of like making that kind of music. You know, I thought that was just like, this is something bad. You know, this is something I'm not supposed to have. They're swearing and they're kind of saying
parental advisory sticker.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like in 4th grade. You know, I was about maybe 10 years old. So that's like proper contraband, you know, back then. But I think around the same time I got a Guns N' Roses tape, and that kind of spoke to me more. For whatever reason, I felt like I identified with it more. And I remember I cut all my jeans up, and we were really poor. And my older sister, she found out that I cut my jeans, you know, to be like Axl Rose or something on the tape. I think he has like cut up jeans or something. And she just whipped the shit out of me for it, you know, because we're poor, you know. I just ruined all the pants that she knows my mom doesn't have money to buy new pants. So, you know, but yeah, I think obviously I don't make music like either of those bands, but I love the rebellious nature of both of those bands. You know, the sort of, I think in a way, even though King Dude might not seem like that rebellious to people, to me it is. It's very rebellious. And it maybe on a more intellectual level, without being too intellectual. I hate that. I don't want to be like a thinking person's band. I want to be just a regular person's band. But, you know, I like to think of myself as rebelling against the things that I don't like to see.
Sure. I think that also that there, I think a lot of bands though that are truly great, they got layers too. They got layers for you when you're 15, from when
Yeah.
you're 25, from when you're 35, when you're 45, and as you keep peeling those layers away, you're like, oh, you start to see new things. That's truly great music. That's
Yeah.
really great art, right? That's like that
Yeah.
timeless quality.
Yeah, yeah, that's something
Right.
I aim for. You know, I want it to appeal on a. I want little kids to like it on the surface, or people that don't really want to dive deep into the lyrics or anything. I want it to still have that sort of appeal, sort of a surface kind of almost pop appeal, and then, well, in my mutated version of pop, not really pop, and then, you know, as you get down, like I want it to last too. I want it to be like something that people could put on 40 years from now and have it make sense a little bit. Like I don't want it to be completely like a time capsule of everything that's happening right now. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, like you
conscious
don't want
of
it to be
that,
like
and
a period piece or something. It's not
right.
like the Victorian era or something, right?
Well, and you
It's
know how
like,
some things don't age well. Like maybe if you know, some people were young and they liked something like I don't know, Limp Bizkit, and then if you look at it later, and no offense to Limp Bizkit fans out there, I'm sure somebody will be offended, but if you look at it later, it might not wear as well. You know, there might not have been another layer to it. It might have just been the surface shit. But I mean, maybe there is. I don't fucking know. I never listened to that shit. But you know, again, no offense to the people that like it. I just think.
but that's the intent. But that's not the intent, obviously, of what you're trying to do, and like the great stuff.
We like as that's a terrible example because I clearly don't do anything that they do. You know,
Yeah.
Clearly, like I'm not some fucking. I'm not trying to get signed to Sony. You know.
Yeah.
Or
You're building something. You're building something in a really different way.
Yeah,
So,
very organic
but
way.
to get to King Dude, there is a lot of experimentation to get to King Dude, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So I want to know about. I really like to know about these growing times. So what was like the first sort of experiences in the underground like? And what like drew you to, okay, you know, I like obviously Guns N' Roses, one of the biggest bands in the world, and NWA and stuff like that. What started to bring you into more underground music and things of that nature?
I think it was the accessibility of it, of punk, essentially punk and hardcore. Those two genres are accessible. Like if you can, if you're willing, you're allowed to be involved. You know, it's very accessible. It's very, you know, you could contribute to that, and you could do things. I mean, we have a lot of bands to thank for that kind of, for breaking those walls down of the big labels and all that shit. You know, bands like Fugazi and, you know, Black Flag and the early shit from there, and you know.
And as much of a sound,
Yeah.
ethos, right? There was like a more of like a democratic,
Right.
ethos
Absolutely.
to it, more, you know, DIY ethos, and that's something that I think
very old school now. That's very old school now. That almost doesn't exist now. Like,
yeah.
I see some kids that are kind of hearkening back to it, but it almost feels like they remind me of pagans now, you know, like neo-pagans. They're looking back at something that they're disconnected from for whatever reason, right? Maybe because the elders have sold out, you know, so they have to reinvent what DIY is, or, you know what I mean? That it's similar to like paganism, where people don't have the connection to the origins, right? There's no clear connection from that DIY scene. I sometimes feel like a dinosaur when I'm on tour. Like I've done, you know, I've had a tour manager not too far in the past tell me that I paid my bandmates and people on the tour too much, you know, that I'm doing it wrong, you know, and I go, well, if it's wrong, I don't want to be right, you know. I want to pay the people what I feel they deserved, you know. Like there seems to be a lot of industry around punk, you know, and hardcore and you know, or independent music in general, DIY. Like,
Yeah, I
there's
definitely
a lot of industry around it, and it kind of sucks the life out of it.
It's gotten a lot more professionalized over time, whereas I think when we were younger and stuff like that, we're relatively around the same age and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot more example out there now. And I think honestly, with the way that things are sort of changing as far as people being maybe more aware of like, streaming platforms, what they mean, or a service like Bandcamp that shows so much solidarity with artists,
Sure.
And everything that they've been doing versus, and now they're starting to become
it's indistinguishable between between the mainstream artists and the DIY artists, and the goals are, I mean, when I was growing up, we had Maximum Rock and Roll. We had like this newsprint on, like if you wanted to like do a tour, you had to call people on the phone, you had to write
book your own fucking life.
Yeah, book your own fucking life, exactly. And I'm not saying that like that makes it better for what, it's just that's the tools we have. Now the tools are different. Now the tools are like this,
Yeah.
And I always think back, like when people get really upset about this, like this shit or social media or whatever, I always like, especially older people, usually people our age or older, they complain about youth. They complain about the youth. They're like, the youth are just on their phone. They're not actually trying. They're not doing it, the way we did it. They didn't, sort of take their licks, and they're not doing, they're earning it without doing anything, and they're not actually doing anything. And I just want to scream at them like, you're wrong, because they're right.
Absolutely.
Because the Jam said it first. The kids, the Jam said it, that, when there's kids everywhere that are doing this shit. They've been like, and a lot of those faces are under 25. And the kids are always right, and all the shit that's not the Jam. But you know what I mean? They're always right. The youth culture is always right. So you have to kind of get out of the way of them. Even if you don't like it, you have to go, yeah, it's right. You don't have to do it, but you don't have to fucking shit talk it, because that's what all the people did about what you were doing when you were.
I cannot agree with you more. And I think that there's really, in not only music, but in all these different cultures too, as well, as like, there's going to be evolution. And at a certain point, you have to realize that you don't occupy the same space that you did at a certain point too, right?
No,
like,
yeah.
I'm 37 now. And I'm learning from people that are 22, 23, who are doing incredible stuff, who are great artists and doing things like that.
But you're rather transformative. You're very like, you're mercurial. You don't stay in the same, you're not like a curmudgeon, like some of these that we're possibly talking about, where they're like, purist, and they say it has to be done this way. If it isn't done this way, it fails. And those people they carve their own vein, and that's fine,
Yeah.
But, it doesn't mean I'm going to make like a dubstep album or whatever that's only released on SoundCloud. It doesn't mean that I like it, or I love trap music. It doesn't mean I'm going to make a trap album. It doesn't mean that. It could mean that I respect it. I see it happening everywhere. It's to me, it's almost like folk music, what I see a lot of these kids doing. They're taking the tools. It's like it's like folk or the blues. They're taking the tools presented to them, and they're expressing themselves. That's it. And if you don't get it, you don't have to get it. You just have to listen. And everyone wants to like shit on their fucking skills as lyricists or musicians or whatever else. But they need to wake up and realize that, give it, 20 years, it's going to be AI making all the music anyways. This is the way we are really practicing the way of the dodo right now. Because all it will take is one more generation for nobody to give a shit how to play guitar. So you'll be like some
I think
antiquated thing that somebody goes and watch. Oh, look, people still do that.
Yeah, but I think
Why?
that's actually, I think that there's like I agree and I disagree. I agree with the fact that, people will learn how to do certain things at a certain point that will kind of coincide with different emerging technologies in the time. I mean, that's how rock and roll was developed, right?
Yeah,
like, rock and roll, like, Les Paul, electric guitar, all of these things, they've always followed these different arcs. But at the same time, with there's still so much power in just a guitar and a person, and that never really goes away.
No, but that wasn't always there. You got to understand, the guitar wasn't always there. The guitar was invented in like, I don't know, somebody should fact check this. It's an Italian instrument. It was invented in the like 14th, 15th century. Like, it's very like, it's not new. I mean, it's not new, but it's relatively new. Like, the harpsichord, man. What the fuck? That instrument is fucking the most antiquated thing. And that thing was the wildest new instrument that fucking broke classical music for a long time. It broke everything up. It fucked everything up. And dude, I'm just saying, like, electronic instruments, I think, are breaking up, like the harpsichord did to classical music in a way, or the guitar did, you know, and later it evolved into you know, rock and roll instrument.
Yeah.
You just can't, like, you can't think that something will last forever in music.
No. I think that that's a dangerous way to think, but I also think that it's also something to not necessarily kowtow to, but to understand and use for your own purposes, right? So before you know, King Dude started and stuff like that, though, I want to get back to kind of your progression as a musician.
It was all a joke, man. This is just one big prank.
It's one big prank. It was it. But
come on, you know, I'm just pulling everybody's chain. I'm just saying,
what was the first band that you were ever in?
The first band I was ever in, that's a good question. It was called the Telly Savalas.
Uh-huh.
You know who Telly Savalas is?
I know the name. Why don't it's not coming to me, though.
He's a very famous actor from the 1970s.
Yeah.
Played Kojak on television.
Kojak, that's it.
Yeah.
I was like, it was a TV show.
Yeah.
And for some reason in my head, I had Columbo, but I knew it was wrong.
So for whatever reason, when I was a kid, we thought it would be really funny. Maybe we were trying to like, because this is in, wow, this is probably like, that's the 90s. It's like the early 90s. But we were probably trying to like appeal to our like older brothers' generation or older sisters, you know, by naming it something ironic after an actor from a 70s, you know.
Yeah, it feels very like grunge or like.
Yeah, and it was here, you know, it was Seattle, and the grunge thing was happening then, and the Telly Savalases, what a fucking terrible name.
But it also shows you that a lot of people think that all these kids or some, everybody has to grow up under the microscope of doing stuff, and anyone can see it at any given time.
Yeah, now
we had the ability to kind of gestate a little bit. You could be in the Telly Savalases, and
well, yeah, I wouldn't even be ashamed of it. I mean, I'm telling you that now. I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. I just don't know how to think of it.
As we shouldn't be.
It wasn't good. I mean, I'm glad we didn't have like a YouTube channel, because I mean, again, like I think that even I think it's good to expose everything. Like who?
For sure.
Who have you been your entire life?
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
I totally agree.
You know, unless you have like a weird, you know, white supremacist phase, you know, then that's going to fucking set you back a couple notches, and you've really got to like atone for it, you know? But the fact that all these kids right now, they're really showing everything that they've ever done in their entire lives to everyone. It's pretty amazing. In a way, they're showing they're just bearing all, you know. It's pretty
from day one. So after that, what was like the first real as band that you were really in, that you felt like, hey, all right,
well, that would be Teen Cthulhu.
Teen Cthulhu.
Yeah, and we did good things. Like we did a split with Iron Lung, and I think Iron Lung is still active on, and you know, they're still doing shit. And well, shit, they haven't changed much, I don't think, at all since then. You know, and
they still kick ass in the way that they have.
Yeah, and we Mouse from Dystopia put out one of our albums on Life is Abuse, and we hit a lot of huge mile markers for us, being from essentially a small town here in Seattle, and really looking up to a lot of these guys and working with them. It was amazing. I mean, that's incredible. But speaking on the DIY element of that band,
when you're learning from a lot of these folks too, right? About putting things together, seeing how things are working.
Yeah, it's sort of like everybody's learning from each other. There's certain people we looked up to a lot, and there's a lot of people in the Bay Area in particular that we looked up to, like Robert from Artemis Pyle, and you know, obviously Mouse from Dystopia, you know, Andy at Tumult, and Aquarius Records, like being in that close of proximity to San Francisco and Oakland really kind of forced us to grow up. You know, we wanted to be, you know, a band that, I don't know, that toured and that, I don't know, we believed in what we were doing. It was very democratic, and in a way it
was that
really,
your first like true like touring band that did like a lot of stuff?
yeah, we did a lot. I mean, we went everywhere. Like, I think we did one US tour, but it felt like it was like, God, dude, it felt like it was like, it was so hard, you know. I guess it's the first time, you know, you go around the United States is huge. I don't need to tell you that. And yeah, so it was like, it was very eye-opening, and I was very young, and it was great. It was a great learning experience, and some of the greatest times of my life too, where we felt really free. We weren't like, you know, part of a scene. We didn't have to dress a certain way, you know, bullshit like that. We were alien. We came from out here, you know, and we were doing, you know, this weird sort of grindcore, you know, power violence influenced grindcore black metal thing. I don't know any other. There were no bands that we really felt that much kinship with, even other than the ones I'd mentioned, you know.
Sure. And that's kind of an amazing thing is when you're kind of, you know, learning the ropes of this whole thing and feeling it out. Did you feel really at home on the road pretty early, or was it something that you liked, or something that you just...
No, it's absolutely something I loathed, man. I hated it. And I hate the sun. And there's so much like sun in the, you know, in the world. Like, especially the closer you get to the equator, you're going to have more sun in your life. I'm just really not built for touring. I get motion sickness, you know, but that's all I've done since, you know, since then. All I've been doing my whole life is touring. It's a strange thing. Like, I think about that often. I'm like, why do I do this? Why is this my job? Well, there must be something I love about it. There's like loads of things I fucking hate about it, but ultimately, I think I live for the concert, you know, not to sound too cliche or anything, but I love the moment of, you know, performing, and I love, you know, making people happy if I can, or making them upset or whatever. You know, I just love that sort of, you know, it's a strange place to be on stage in front of people.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, like that's one thing that you really realize is how much of just like life you give up for that moment, for the moment.
Yeah.
You're like 23 hours of the day, there's this thing hanging over your head.
Yeah.
Performance every day, and what kind of grind that is. So
it is a fucking intense grind, especially if you're in a metal band. And you know, I feel really bad for metal, like small metal bands, because I've done that for a long time. I'm almost as much as I've done this King Dude thing, you know, that actually isn't as complicated and painful, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about that. So
yeah,
Cthulhu break, you know, parts ways, and then how does Book of Black Earth kind of rise up from that?
Well, Team Cthulhu ended in a really incredible way. Like, we were offered a Peel session with John Peel. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, I know.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
PPC?
Actually, that's, I think, the reason we broke up, because he offered us a Peel session. He found one of our CDs at an HMV in London, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And liked it. And then we got this email from one of his assistants at the BBC inviting us for a Peel session. I just thought it was a fake email. And then, yeah, we all looked at it. We go, no, it's real. We wrote them back. We go, yeah, we'd like to do it. And they go, yeah, well, you know, if you come here, you could do that. Like, they're not going to fly you out, you know, that it's not like that. And we had this discussion about it, and like 3 of us didn't even have jobs, I think, out of 5 of us, you know. So it would have been like 5 flights to London. You know, it was just, it kind of broke us up. in a way, we just decided, you know, we can't really afford to do, you know, and two people wanted to go back to school. So then shortly thereafter, Joe Axler, who's a great drummer, who lives here, he played in Splatterhouse and Scarp, two really great kind of a grind band and a sort of crust band. And he hit me up and he wanted to start a new band, and so we started Book of Black Earth together, and we went on that adventure for 5 years or so, and ending up signing to Prosthetic Records, which was a huge mistake. What a terrible label. I hope that the guy who owns that label is listening, because fuck you. That's all I want to say. No, but I mean, I fucking hate that guy. I could go into detail, but we don't have to. I think most people
that's a good message. We could leave it at that. That's a direct and good message.
Fuck that guy. You know, I don't like him. I just don't like him. And if you're on Prosthetic and you like him,
but learning those lessons, though, I think has also paved the way for you to also create King Dude in a different image, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You learn these lessons doing Book of Black Earth, and now you continue to apply them to different musics.
Yeah, like absolutely. Like all the mistakes, I don't really consider there to be mistakes. You know, even the fact that I don't like the guy from Prosthetic and he signs terrible contracts and he ruins bands, you know, that gives me knowledge on what to do, what not to do the next time around. You know, it's not a failure, it's a stumble. And so if you don't fall down, you keep going, right? And so I kept going, I kept going with that knowledge, you know. Don't sign bad record deals with shitty people. I mean, straight up, don't do it. And I mean, that was crazy, because that was, you know, Team Cthulhu democracy. We treated Book of Black Earth like a democracy, and it kind of led to a lot of the problems in it. So when I started King Dude, I was like, this is not going to be a democracy. This is going to be a dictatorship, and I'm going to be the one in charge.
Yeah, sometimes you need to empower yourself, though.
Well, yeah, I mean,
for what you want to do.
I don't want to see my music get destroyed by fucking label people. I don't want to see that shit happen. So, yeah.
No, and I think that there's something about, you know, you just knowing what you want out of the project. And I think that it's important for people to hear this too, which is, and, you know, is how there's the art in and of itself of creating songs and these beautiful things, and then, you know, people might think of the artwork and all of those and those things around it, and like the aesthetics of the project. But there's this other part of the art that is very artful in and of itself, which is how do you give it life in this regard. And when you have some of those failures, as I've had as well, I
think everybody has
internalize those lessons, and you're like, you know what, man, actually it needs to feel like I did when I was like 17. That was like the best feeling.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's really apt. I think that makes a lot of sense to me too. Like, sometimes these other players, like record labels and or managers or even booking agents, they could spike the feeling of your project. They could nail it to something you don't want it to be, and it could destroy that fucking spark that you had, that was the reason you were there in the first place. So, you know, it's super important to constantly keep your eyes on what you're doing and why you were originally doing it, and what your goals are. It's even less important to know what your goals are, but it's most important to keep your eyes on why you started it. Like what was the intention of it? And and so then I started King Dude.
The dictatorship, the benevolent dictatorship of King Dude.
Right.
So
it's a very benevolent. I mean, I'm like Kim on. Who was the first Kim? I'm like the original North Korean dictator. I'm like the best one, not like
you're OG. You're very velvet in your approach.
No, I'm like, no, I treat the people that play with me well. They all hate me at any given moment, but I mean, that's again, like it's just like, it's the price you pay. Like, what do you want? Like, no one's the fucking Beatles anymore. No, that shit doesn't happen. There is so much, man. There's so much fucking shit about the music industry. I could I could do, like, it's not what it seems. It isn't what it seems.
No, it's definitely not. And I think that it's important for people to hear that you sort of went back in a way to your roots from like a process standpoint. Yeah. I'm going to start putting out all my own shit.
Yeah.
I design all this stuff for myself. I'm a great designer. I have my own, clothing brand.
Yeah. I got offered a great deal from Sargent House. I said no because of the merch. Yeah. The merch wasn't good. Like, why would I give Kathy Pello 50% of my merchandise when I could get 100% of it? Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, it makes sense for some people, and I'm not dissing the people on that label at all. Those are my friends. It makes sense for them, but I had a fucking warehouse full of clothes. I could do that myself.
Sure. And I think it's different priorities, different things for different folks at different times, and what your capability.
And
right,
look, dude, and to be honest, like, not taking that deal has limited me in great ways too. Like, there's so many doors that haven't been opened for me by not working with an industry person, like an industry, like somebody who could open up doors for me and do shit for me. But I'm alive, I'm still doing shit. I don't know. I don't know if it's my hubris or my willingness to be here or what, but there's a whole thing about it. I mean, like, what do you want to do? That's my question. That's what I ask people, young people. What do you want to do with this? And if the answer is anything other than, make music or make art, then I don't know what to tell them, But if the answer is, I want to make music, I want to make art, then I have a lot of advice for them, Then,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think that's there's different missions in all of it.
But yeah, with young people, some of them, they want to, they want to get signed to a label. They want to, do a big tour. They want to, feel that fame.
Sure. And sometimes that's linking up with the right person to execute what your goals are is important. And sometimes not everyone's going to have the skills. Like you were saying, you're like, I've owned a clothing brand. I'm a great designer in my own. I have a lot of things that are, like literally like in-house, like in your own way of doing this.
Also, but I'm a fucking son of a bitch.
Like,
I'm a son of a bitch. I'm like the worst person. Like, I do everyone a favor when I say no. Like, I don't want to work. No, trust me, you don't want to work with me. Like, I'm the worst person because I'm gonna be really curmudgeoned in my artistic view. I'm not gonna be able to bend that much. I'm not. I mean, I'm really not. That's why I have great like Vaughn Records out of Germany. Have to give Sven the biggest shout out because he just lets me do whatever the fuck I want. I gave him an album in January this year, 2020. I delivered an album like mid-January, and I was like, this has to be out, in time for me to tour in March. And he did it. Like, who does that? No one does that.
Yeah. So basically, he's acquiescing to all of
it's not just me. It's everyone. I mean, it's not just me. It's everyone on his label, and it's his view. Like, really, like, it's his view of art and what music is and what it is. I mean, he's got a very clear vision. Like, he you know how rare that is, though. That's like, fuck. Like, most people be like, oh, sorry, the distributor wants it. Your album's got to come out in 6 months. Or 8 months. That's really standard. I mean, this is.
Oh, totally. I think that's what maybe a lot of people who are watching right now don't really know, that that's really a lot of your favorite artists, the art that's coming out at the moment is not really of the moment as well. And there's a lot that goes into it. And
I wrote that album in January this year. And the last album, Full Virgo Moon, came out March 13th, from, like, I recorded it this year. Like, that's crazy. That no one does that. I guess, huge artists can do that. Like, Kanye West can just, like, okay, I'm dropping an album right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because everyone's gonna buy it anyways. But like little guys, we're in this tier of this little like middle to lower tier, to where we're bullied by distributors. Distributors bully labels, they bully record stores, and they're the fucking obtuse motherfuckers in the industry that ruin shit for everybody. You know, like the best thing that could come out of like whatever this economic collapse would be that distributors go away and we go back to a handful of small DIY distributors. That would be amazing. That would be
if that was maybe one thing that you'd like to see change in the future.
Oh sure, it'd be better for everybody.
I think that what's interesting about just this time period is a really amazing time period in history is that you came back to the United States and there's a lot of potential for reimagining to make a lot of things better.
That's how I feel about it too. I truly do. Yeah.
And I think that it's happening in such a dramatic and amazing way.
Well, it has to happen because when you have any kind of collapse, right? You have to start to reimagine, right? Sure. Capitalism is often described as a rocky ride, right? It's not even, and then it gets really fucking tumultuous and it throws some people off, and then the bigger, players pick up the pieces. We'll probably see that around the country with live venues, and that might be something interesting to talk to you about, like Live Nation, places like that might be absorbed or taking up, like buying up these collapsing sort of venues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you want like the direct answer to that, for sure.
Yeah, I do. I want to know what you think, what you're looking at.
Yeah, I from my point of view, I think that there's been a lot of resiliency as far as just independent venues for the first time really banding together as like
That's cool. That would be cool.
There's a thing called NEVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association, that was literally created 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's got 2,000 venues on it, and everyone's fighting for the same shit.
Well, that would be better than how it is, because you know what it is to tour and you show up at the one venue in, like, say Madison or wherever, it's the guy's on fucking fentanyl, the guy who runs the place, and you're not going to get paid or something, Yeah. I don't want that either.
No, of course not.
But I don't want it all to be Live Nation either. I mean, Live Nation gives me a check, and these, the production manager has no idea what band I'm in. They're like, here is your check. Here you go.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the dressing room. Have a good show. And everything runs smooth, but it's soulless, Sure. I'm glad you guys banded. Are you part of that?
I am. I'm working behind the scenes, personally. Like Saint Vitus as an organization is a part of it, but also I've been working on marketing and stuff for doing that as well. And it's a really amazing initiative. It's mostly focused a lot on like kind of lobbying like government on a national level to kind of support the arts. But there's a lot of amazing like resource sharing and just people talking about all sorts of stuff that I wish we were open, because I'm learning so much from these amazing other institutions.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did anybody approach you to buy you?
No, not yet. And it hasn't, it really hasn't panned out that way. I feel like the whole thing is kind of hemorrhaging money right now, and it might not be the time, but I can also imagine a time where what you were saying is something that's there. And of course the temptation will be there, especially for certain people who are on the ropes. And there's a lot of people who are on the ropes.
Yeah, you can't blame them for selling. I think that would be wrong to blame people who sold their, you can't know what their background is and why they sold. There could be.
Exactly. And a lot of folks too, I mean, right now, the average, we did a survey, like the average on an independent club can last while they're closed is about 6 months. We're going to be like the last open too. So there's a lot of, this is an issue that's taking precedent, kind of now, as far as what you could do. So who knows? You know, there's already been some closures in New York. I don't know about the rest of the country because I'm not as plugged in, but we're fighting against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then once it becomes just real estate and a building,
yeah, no shit.
Then it becomes much easier to kind of come in and get it.
Well,
so
that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a completely different animal. So
that's real. That's landlord shit. That's like fucking building owners and property owners. That's an insane thing. That's
not small business. That's real estate at that point.
Yeah.
Completely different. So, you know, to your question, it's like, yeah, and I think this is what's interesting, since I've been somebody who's in the United States for the whole time, is that at first the pandemic was like, man, things are just going to get so much worse. Like everything's like fucking shit. And now all of a sudden it's like these possibilities for reimagining everything from, you know, racial, you know, justice and economic justice to like, you know, having, you know, better places for the arts and people to express themselves and stuff. A lot of these things are now on the table in like, we were having conversations down here and now we're having conversations way up here.
Everything has to be raised. Yeah.
And I'm here for it. And I think that's what's important. That's what we're doing now, just like one-to-one and with our friends here. But there's also, just the ability to continue doing that. And so I think as creative people and people who are, you know, just kind of engaged in stuff, we have to continue to ask critical questions. And a lot of this you're talking about.
For sure. I'm really interested in what the future of touring looks like. Like, I mean, forget about, for now, if you can, you know, the inequities in America. Like, just think in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic on public gatherings, right? How do we tour in the future if we, for the next year, possibly, we have to, you know, social distance? What does a show look like? What does a festival look like? How do we do it? And is there a smarter way? And can venues still exist in that smarter way? Can bands, because this has been my problem even, you know, before the COVID thing happened. This was happening to me. I was on tour with Amigo the Devil and Twin Temple, and I mean, before I left, I was having like I was having like this existential crisis about merchandise. I go, you know, I don't want to print a bunch of shirts on Gildan's, you know, and then pack them into a van that is filled with Shell gasoline, and then every meal I take between, you know, venues is at McDonald's or you know, some corporate thing. Like, if I go on tour, who fucking benefits? Gildan, oil companies, big junk food, you know, like there's no way. I mean, you could print your shirts on American Apparel or, you know, or whatever the, you know, the cool little company is at the time. But what I'm saying is, like, you're still like, you have to put gas in your fucking engine. If I go to Europe, I have to get on a fucking airplane that costs gas, right? So like jet fuel, that's you know, you have Greta Thunberg, you know, coming on a boat over here, you know, from Sweden, talking about, like, this is unsustainable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can argue that she's wrong, but I'm feeling that she might be right, because we've taken 2 months off of work. You know, you could see like mountain ranges you never got to see before. I landed in LA earlier this week. There was no smog. It was amazing. Like, obviously, we impact the world through our actions. That just is obvious, right? Why do I need to tour? Why do I need to be there? Like, is there another way? And really quick, I gotta say, because this is an idea I had. We are seeing like this lower impact from fossil fuels and like our, you know, our effect on the world from what we do. And everyone's like, this is amazing, except we need to go back to work. Why don't we just take 2 months off every year, like mandatory?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think these are the kinds of things too creatively that as we can't go. I think that you're right. Like it's an opportunity to change the status quo around certain things.
Yeah.
And what the value of certain things are for people. Like what is the value of a live show? Should there ever be a $10 live show? Like should live music be
streamed? I mean, think about what it is to stream too. Like, I mean, I would love to do a tour streamed every night to venues. So I stream it to or through Saint Vitus, for example, for New York, right? So you control it and you distribute it, right? So you collect the money and you could distribute it, you know, to within, you know, a certain parameter of New York City, right? That makes sense to me. Then I could like set up my live show and I give you like your live show and I do. This is already something people are doing. People are already doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that it will never. And then could that create like a certain tier? And then could the actual live show always?
Absolutely.
I think there's a very primitive thing of like dancing around the campfire, like we're human fucking beings.
Are you
never go
away. Of course. Why do you think everybody took to the streets?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, that's part of it. That's not the only reason why, but that's part of it. It's tribalism. Like, America's been disconnected from one another for 2 months. It's not a good thing to do. Don't put Americans out of work. Don't tell them to stay at home. They love to congregate. They're going to congregate in the worst way if you do that. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I mean, or at least in the eyes of.
Or the best way.
Yeah, the best way, but in the eyes of like the people that like in the government's eyes, like. Okay. But I'm very suspect. Like, why would they? They must know that. Like, they're not dumb. Are they that dumb to think that
that they might be. I think that they might be. I think that there's a hubris power. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
There's a hubris power,
and
and
I don't know.
And a perfect storm has definitely happened. So TJ, I only got a couple of minutes left. I just want to.
No. We're gonna talk all night. Don't worry.
Yeah, we only. Instagram gives us the little cap of an hour. So I just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having
me. You're great. And it's always important to have really open and cool conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And man, I hope to see you soon. And we'll definitely be talking. All right, my man?
I love you.
Take care of yourself.
Bye. Take care.